Hi, everyone. Ann Maxwell here with weekly consult number 6. And hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful for all the comments and all the just everything that you guys are, the contribution that you are to each other and to this group, this Facebook group. We talked about doing this on parenting, and there are a couple of posts that came in with some questions about. So all right, so it's so funny. Like the questions come in, and it's almost like, all right, is that actually the question, or what if it's something else? So there was a dad who was talking about how hard it is on his kids because their mom is almost like an absentee mom, my words, not his, and doesn't frequently show up when she's supposed to show up, and the kids get really upset. And then I think he said they also take it out on him and stuff like that. And so let's actually talk about that very thing. So I think in one of the previous consults, we talked about this idea that I've held for years, which is that kids choose their parents, right? As kids actually do choose their parents. And so I've worked with a lot of kids who've been adopted, who've been in the foster care system. And one of the things that I am really clear on is this. So what if, as a being or as a soul or as a whatever, you go to God, you go to the universe, and you say, I want to go back. And God or the universe says, okay, what body do you want? So you pick your body, I pick my body, your kids pick their bodies. And then God or the universe says, and what parents do you want? And some of us pick a really direct route and have the same parents from start to finish, basically. And there's a spectrum from that on one end to kids who get raised in foster care systems and blow out of every home, every foster home, and basically end up with no, quote, parents, but staff, right? And everything in between. So some of us pick easy beginnings to life. Others of us pick more complicated ones that can be traumatic, can be really difficult, like that. So one of the things that about your kids and the disappointment that they have, that's one of the hardest things to watch, is when your kids get upset and you can't comfort them because you can't make whoever it is who's upsetting them do what they need to do in order to not upset the kids. I get that. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it, though, is you can't make somebody else change, whether it's a parent or a kid or a friend, right? You cannot make people change. They are who they are. And one of the greatest gifts I think we can give our kids is what I call the gift of awareness, which is getting away from what should be. Like anything with a should is really tends to complicate relationships to what is. So one of the things that you can ask your kids is you can ask your kids, what do you know about your mom? And they'll come up with a lot of stuff. And it's not a blaming thing at all. But one of the things that you really want to gift your kids is the awareness that she doesn't show up all the time, and that she's unpredictable, and that, whatever their time is like with them. So I'm just going to tell you a story. I worked with a little guy who was 5 when I first met him, who has one of the meanest, I think I may have even talked about him, one of the meanest dads I've ever met. And I say that without judgment. It's just a statement of fact. And he would come in and he'd say, my dad did this, that, and the other thing. And I'd say, okay. So, and his dad was mean. He really was mean. But what I said to him was, what do you know about your dad? And well, he's mean. Well, is he just mean to you or is he mean to other people? Well, he's mean to everybody. It's like, yeah. One of the things that his mom did, right, and when she brought him in to see me, was she was actually using the dad's meanness and the effect that it was having on her son as a way of justifying how right she was in the court case and how wrong the dad was. And what she was actually doing was creating him as a victim. And I said, here's the deal. If you create him as a victim, he's going to have abusive relationships for his whole life, right? Abusive girlfriends, abusive bosses, abusive friends, like that kind of stuff. What if instead of creating him as a victim, we empower him so that we give him the tools so that to empower him to be able to deal with people like this. And so what if one of the gifts that you can give to your kids is to empower them to know who their mom actually is without drawing a conclusion, without making her wrong, without any of that, without turning them into victims. Yeah, sometimes your mom doesn't show up. Yeah, it's hard. So what if we have a plan A, plan B? Plan A is you go with your mom, and plan B is if for whatever reason she doesn't show up, this is what we can do, right? And it's almost like just get clear, get honest. Your job is not to make her be somebody that she's not. Whatever's going on in her world, she's either unable or unwilling to show up the way she says she's going to show up or follow whatever the court order is or any of that. I don't know. That's sort of a long rant, but I hope that's helpful. I don't know if I can't remember what your name is, and I don't know if you're watching right now because I have this really weird screen, but so that. All right. And then spoiling rotten. That's one of is it possible to spoil your kids? Here's the deal. I have a different point of view about spoiling rotten. My point of view about kids is, to the extent that you can as a parent, give them whatever it is that they're able to have if they're using it to follow their dreams or create the kind of life that they would like to have or whatever. Here's an example of what I would not call spoiled rotten. I would just call entitled. I have a friend whose daughter's at a college for high school kids, and she was telling me about her daughter was telling me about a kid. It's apparently many of the kids who are there come from really wealthy families and like hugely wealthy. And so she's telling me about a boy whose dad bought him a Tesla. That was his car. And then he crashed it. So then his dad got him a Lexus, and then he crashed that. And so then his dad was getting him another car, like that kind of stuff. I don't view that as spoiled. There's something like out of sync. That's like entitled. I said, what's the kid like? And she said, he's not very nice, right? That's not spoiled. That's something different. Spoiled is like, if you have the time and the energy and the resources and your child is really gifted in an area, my definition of spoiled is giving them everything that you can to facilitate them developing that, whether it's a sport or whether they're artists or singers or performers or really smart or whatever. Like, mechanically inclined, that you give them whatever opportunities you can for them to go wherever they would like to go with whatever that gift is. So if that's spoiled, no, you can't spoil your kid too much. You can't do that. Where it stops working is when they can't receive it, they can't have it, they weaponize it, they lose interest. All of a sudden, it's more about you than about them, like all that kind of stuff. So, does that help? Does that make sense? Hi, John. Oh, I can see your name. Oh my God. Oh, cool. Maybe that's because you work with me. Cool. All right. So that was about spoiling rotten. I can't remember there. I took notes last time from maybe the last consult. Running away is something that I wrote down too, and I guess I need a little bit more context for that about the running away. I'm not sure. I mean, every kid threatens to run away, and I don't know whether it's like, what are they running away from? They're mad. What are they mad about? Like, what if behavior is a form of communication? What are they actually saying? So I need a little bit more. And having dealt with kids who lived in residential treatment centers and who were no longer living in their homes, whether it was foster care or group homes or whatever, there's the threat of, I'm going to run away because I'm mad at you, to the actualization of like 3-year-olds, 2.5, 3-year-olds out in the streets at 3:00 in the morning because they're hungry, right? Because their parent hasn't come back from wherever they went. So running away anyway. So what's the context for running away? Are they actually running away, or are they just mad at you? Because if they're mad at you, like, what are they saying? What are they actually mad about? What else? Anything, you guys? There is a post from a mom who, it was very sweet. She apologized ahead of time if it would gross anybody out, but it was about poop and her 10-year-old. And at the very end of the post, she, it sounds as if it's a child that she either adopted or is a foster mom for, and I can't remember what it was that she said. So a couple of things. In the consults with Trina, we talked about how kids with autism frequently are not connected to their bodies, and so it may be a body thing. And so, what's the antidote to that? To like give them tools so that they can actually connect to their body. And I think Trina had a list of them, but jumping up and down, being on a trampoline, riding a horse, swimming, like all that kind of stuff. Where are you? Asking them, like all that, doing whatever you can to assist them in connecting to their body. So there's that piece of it. And then the other piece is that if kids have really difficult early years, early months, early days, and are in abusive situations or are in situations where they don't receive the nurturing that kids require in order to thrive, one of the few aspects of their world that actually feels good is poopy diapers. Like, it's warm, it's soft. And if this grosses you out, I'm sorry, but it's, and so one of the, so I don't know whether it's that, whether there's, whether it has anything to do with early life, but if you want to give more information, I'd be happy to have another conversation about it. The antidote, again, is to connect him to his body. And if you weren't around for the original potty training, to do a current day potty training, which is, whatever. I mean, there are just tons of things: setting a watch, setting a timer, reminding him, and knowing that his body's functioning more like a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old that's getting potty trained rather than the 10-year-old that he actually is. And so, what age is he being? He's being 3. He's not actually. He's being 3. He's acting like a 3-year-old in a 10-year-old body. And how do you do that? You meet him where he is functioning developmentally. So if he's functioning like a 3-year-old, you meet him at a 3-year-old level, and you give him the hints and the clues that you would give any 3-year-old that was getting potty trained, or 2-year-old, whatever. Does that make sense? Anyway. And then, all right. So one of the things that John says that I mentioned last week was not making you wrong as a parent. Anything to add to that? That's like, I could talk about that for days and days and days and days and days. But one of the things that I'm becoming so much more aware of recently is how wrong we all think we are. Like there's something wrong with us as a parent, as a human being, as a daughter, as a wife, as a mom, as a like whatever. And I think that this sense that we're wrong creates so many places that we then get blocked or limited or whatever. But I'm not really sure where to go with that. John, if you have any other thoughts. A process for delayed potty training. I just listen to what we talked about. Go back and listen to it. That and what if there's nothing wrong with your child? What if your child is doing the best that they can right now? And ask them. Another thing about kids is if it's not really a problem for them, it's going to be, they may not be as inclined to change it. But a lot of times poopy pants is something that kids will put up with in families, but their peers won't. And so at school or sports teams or whatever, sometimes comments from teammates or friends or peers in the classroom will create sort of an incentive for them to tighten up or change whatever that behavior is. Cool. All right, you guys. Well, I am not going to go on with this anymore if nobody has any other questions. I think what we'll do is call it a day, and let's see where you guys would like to go next week. There's so much we could cover, so let me know. Hi, it says hi. Hi, whoever the Facebook user is. That's the only name I get. But hi. So write some comments below, and we will. I'll be sure to address them next week. Okay. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. Oh, boom. How can you help your child to sleep? Oh, awesome. I have a question for you. How much sleep does your child actually require? Like, because one of the things that I would really like you guys to get is how much more you know about your child than what the experts tell you. And so a lot of kids with autism especially, but also kids with ADD and ADHD, their sleep requirements, their body requirements are really different from other kids. And whereas other kids may need 8, 10, 12, 11, however many hours the pediatricians say of sleep, kids with autism typically don't. And so I don't know what the sleep thing is questions that I would ask you is, how much sleep does your child actually need? And if your child, or how much sleep is your child actually getting? And are they tired in the day? There is a 5-year-old who came in whose parents were literally wrestling him into the bed, because the pediatrician said that because he was 5, he needed 11 hours of sleep a night, and he wasn't sleepy, he wasn't tired. So very long story, very short, is when I asked the mom how much sleep he got, she said 5 or 6 hours, and I said, does he need to take a nap in the day? And she said he's never taken a nap, like he's never slept for very long. And so what they did was they created a way where bedtimes were not problematic anymore. And he was in charge of when the light got turned out. So he was basically in charge of lights out when it was time for him to sleep. And the deal was he had to stay in his room, and they gave him things that he could do, that they would set him up. That was the bedtime routine. It was dinner or supper, bath, story. And then they would ask him, what would you like to do between now and when you fall asleep? And he would come up with these ideas. And he couldn't run around the house. He couldn't make a lot of noise. He couldn't disturb other people. It was actually his time. And that's what worked for them. I'm actually creating a couple of products now for kids to relax their bodies, and then also to sleep. So I will let you know when those are done. Okay, how to deal with nail clipping for a 7-year-old. Your 7-year-old doesn't like to get their nails clipped. Is that the deal? So, is it a sensory thing? Is it a control thing? Can you teach them how to do it and you do a manicure together? I don't know. Give me more information. The thing about kids is, remember, they're just like us. They don't like being made to do something, right? And so what if it could, and I get that today, especially with COVID and especially being home and especially school being out and all that kind of stuff, that people have a lot more stuff on their plates than they used to. But again, I would just really encourage you to invite them to, how can we make this fun, right? You want to clip mine and I'll clip yours, or whatever. They say the one who doesn't want to sleep, or the 7-year-old has SPD, sensory processing disorder. Hi, love you too. Okay, so what question can one be to a child who is being wronged and ashamed about delayed potty training and is continuing? There's not a lot of question in there. It's just one conclusion after another about what's going on. I would ask you, what is this? What's he actually saying? And who's shaming him and making him wrong? And yeah, that you seem to have a conclusion about what's going on and then looking for a question to change it all. I would start with a question like, what is this? What's up? Oh, the 7-year-old. Okay, the 7-year-old nail clipping. Yeah, so sensory processing. So again, you just, I don't know. When the nails get too long, maybe you don't do it as often as you do with your other kids, or you ask him or her, to help you out there because his nails are too long and they actually need to be clipped. Again, there's some stuff that people don't want to do, that kids don't want to do, and sometimes they just got to do it. Okay, somebody else said it was a control thing, so she clips her own. My son, he doesn't want them clipped at all. He cries during hair washing and hair brushing. Oh, sweetie heart. Again, I get that this is a body thing and that he's not connected to his body. And so some of those activities that we talked about, and especially now, like with everybody cooped up inside, I don't know where you live, but where I live, mostly the weather is pretty awesome and it's easy to be outside. And, I walks in the woods, walks in the field, laying down on the grass, like being outside is going to help a lot for them to reconnect with their bodies. And hair washing and hair brushing, I would ask them, these are things that have to be done, honey. What if you could make it so that you were in charge of getting your hair washed? How would you do it? Like, help me out here. How would you like it done? And just ask them. Somebody else said I'd let them choose which finger to do each time. Yeah. I mean, you really, yeah, you guys are awesome. I wish I could see all the names here. This is so wild, so silly. Hi, guys. Oh, you guys are awesome. I'm so grateful for you. Does that help? Here's the other thing. It's really less a question of what's the right thing to do because everything I'm doing is wrong because it's not working. It's not that. It's what's it going to take for this to change? Like, so, and the way I get that you get things to change with your kids is you include them in the conversations and you ask them for help. You ask them to contribute to whatever it is that's going on. You ask them questions like, what could make this easier? What's another way we could do this? I know this is upsetting to you. That, and then you also do the activities that are going to help them feel better in their bodies, connect in their bodies, feel good about themselves. Does that help? Work with Anne. We're coming up with a new website. And so there's going to be a lot of stuff for kids in there. You guys are awesome. A couple weeks, month at the longest. I'm hoping more like 2-3 weeks. Chelsea's going to, yeah. So, yeah. My children are now scared to go outside because of rioting. Where do you live? And again, we just sort of touched on this, but what if the greatest gift this goes back to the dad who's sounds like Mr. Mom, like the kids actually picked him to raise them. But anyway, it's like, what if the greatest gift that you can give your kids is the gift of awareness, right? You cannot protect your kids. You just can't. But what you can do is give them the gift of being aware. And how do you do that? You ask them, what do you know? So I don't know where you live. Okay, Chicago. Well, Chicago's it's been crazy. And it may be safe for them to go out. I think that the violence in Chicago has really abated, right? I don't think it's violent anymore. And maybe you start off with let's check it out. And if it feels dangerous or whatever, we'll just go home. right? But yeah, I don't know. I Tell me some more. Has he gone out? Did you guys get swept up in one of the protests? Um, oh, sweetie, thank you for that. I'm going to go back and see all the people who are writing these lovely things. I love you all. That is so cool. All right. Okay, good. So I think this may be it. Gift of awareness. How do you do that? Yes, and what they know. So what do you know? Is it okay to go outside? Yes or no? And light and heavy, right? When you ask a question, if you do yes or no, and one of them is going to be lighter, and you allow your kids to, um, you teach them. It's not really like we're teaching them. It's just allowing them to have the knowing that they actually already have that they may have squashed for whatever reason. We checked it out. They were so nervous and jumpy. It may not be a great time to get them out there. It's like, what do you know? Does that make sense? Yeah, they didn't see protests, but they did see the store across the street broken into. And you give them information that, yeah, there are a lot of really crazy, violent people out there, and this is a time. This is a world changing time, or this is a country changing time in the United States. And people, people are asking for changes, and some people took advantage of that and tried to destroy things. And those destroyers aren't around so much anymore. And you don't. I mean, the other thing is the one of the what's the antidote to fear? The gift of awareness. Like, do you actually need to be afraid right now, or is it fear or just awareness? This is not a good time to go out, right? Oh, I bet they loved walking to that store. This is hard stuff, you guys. It really is. But maybe they can go to the store and thank the store for being so lovely, and ask God or ask the universe if there's anything that can be done to help the store owners restore the store or have another store some other place or whatever. But yeah, it's sad. It hurts. It's like all that, and just to acknowledge that for them. Okay, love y'all. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week, but I know it'll come to me. And if you guys have any ideas, let me know in the meantime. All right. Thanks, everybody. Love you lots. All right. Bye.